Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to yet another video here on the channel. I'm pretty sure you're aware right now that there is a convoy going on in Canada, in its capital of Ottawa. But today we have bigger fish to fry. And it's obviously the reason why these truckers are out in Ottawa in the first place. So there's an article, link in the description, archived of course, and I also am going to be flashing a bunch of pictures on screen to show you as to what is going on. But in the article that I'm going to put in the description, a school board in Virginia, despite electing Glenn Youngkin, he promised to end mandates. I don't know what the hell's going on. But there are school boards, particularly in the Nova region, where kids, even if they are fully vaccinated, kids could possibly be faced with suspensions and possibly being felons if they don't abide by any mask mandate that is in the school boards. And if you take a look at New York City, the same situation is happening there, but if you don't carry out a piece of paper, you're not allowed to go outside and you could be charged with a felony just for going outside without a mask or without your shot card. Now we know, obviously, the OSHA mandate failed in the Supreme Court, as expected, so it can't be done federally, although that hasn't stopped certain local governments and the federal government from implementing mandates. As you see in Canada, there are still mask mandates and vaccine mandates in place on the federal level. That's why there's a trucker convoy going on in Ottawa. You have incidents where students at schools are going to face suspensions or possibly prosecution if they don't have a mask. People in New York City get faced with charges if they don't have their COVID cards at all times. A 9-year-old girl, and I'm not making this up, a 9-year-old girl at the Natural History Museum, or I believe it was at the Empire State Building, I don't remember which one it is, but there was a 9-year-old girl in handcuffs, and I'm going to show you the video on screen, a 9-year-old girl being escorted with handcuffs. Keep in mind she didn't do anything wrong, yet she is being arrested and escorted by the NYPD just because she wasn't wearing a mask and just because she didn't have a piece of paper with her at all times. Now, this is obviously fucked up. It doesn't take somebody with at least a brain cell to know right away that this kind of behavior is fucked up. It's authoritarian, it's tyrannical, it's blatantly unlawful and unconstitutional, and it is outright absolute stupid. And I'm genuinely surprised that after OSHA was just struck down by the courts, this behavior still continues. Omicron is starting to decline, cases worldwide are starting to decline, deaths worldwide are starting to decline. Denmark has lifted all of its restrictions and ended all of its mandates. The UK has lifted its restrictions and ended all of its mandates. Norway has ended all of its mandates and lifted its restrictions. We are noticing more and more and more of these countries lifting restrictions, ending mandates altogether, fully, not partially by the way, and yet in certain countries, governments, even on the local level, are still attempting to implement more restrictions or are still continuing to enforce their already put in place restrictions and mandates. Especially here in the United States, if you attempt to lift restrictions and end mandates, like what Florida did, you get called out by the media and, as well, attacked by your own government. And it's getting very annoying. Seriously, the next time I hear somebody say "Death Satan" one more time, I'm just gonna ignore you. It's always "Death Satan this," "Death Satan that." Ron DeSantis wants to kill grandma. He wants to kill little Jimmy because he refuses to lock things down. He refuses to implement mandates at schools. He refuses to implement any mandates whatsoever. Oh my god, this dude's Beelzebub, according to the left. And yet, those same exact people, they praise other governors like Gavin Newsom and Kathy Hochul of California and New York for implementing restrictions, despite the fact that they're literally doing more harm than good. 3 cheers for Hochul and Newsom, says the left, keeping our community safe and shutting down the virus. Meanwhile, that evil Death Satan, this evil Nazi fascist is just sitting there wanting to kill grandma, putting people's lives at risk because he refuses to implement any restrictions whatsoever. He's a Nazi who believes in individual rights and liberty. And that's fear-mongering bullshit, by the way. I mean, this is getting out of hand. I mean, it's already bad enough that kids in certain school boards are at risk of being suspended just for not wearing a mask, despite the fact that they are vaccinated and maybe even boosted. But the fact that I just saw a video in New York City of people getting arrested, including a 9-year-old girl who probably is already vaccinated, because it is New York, but a 9-year-old girl getting arrested and possibly might be getting a felony charge because she's not wearing a mask and not carrying a COVID card, it just doesn't make any sense. The The fact that governments are still allowing this to occur, despite the fact that there are countries and states that are going back on this, it outright baffles me. I don't know why people are supporting this. I mean, there's a reason why there's a convoy going on in Ottawa at the moment. There's a reason why protests are going on all across Europe and the world right now. You are not going to get rid of COVID. I hate to tell you this, but you're not going to get rid of it. The CDC and the WHO have all said that this virus cannot be contained. It is a seasonal, yearly, endemic disease. The only country in the world that I can think of that still thinks that it can fully eradicate this thing is New Zealand. Seriously. New Zealand is the only country that I can think of that is still crazy enough to think that they can eradicate COVID. I don't know if they still think that way, but that was like the only country that I can think of that still believes that they can eradicate this virus. Point is, no mandate, no lockdown, no social distancing guideline. There is nothing that these governments legally can do to eradicate COVID. Nothing. So I find it completely ignorant that governors like Ron DeSantis are being hammered because they refuse to implement restrictions within their state. If you take a look at the 4 largest states in the union, California, Texas, Florida, New York, all of which have different responses to COVID. They all had a sharp rise of cases, especially with the Omicron variant. All of them had a sharp increase of cases, and now all cases are declining within those 4 states, despite all of their responses being completely different. There's literally nothing else these governors can do. You almost gotta feel sorry for them. There's nothing that my governor can do to stop the spread. You almost gotta feel sorry for the dude. Like, there's nothing that can be done. The WHO even stated that this virus is going to become endemic. We have so many variants right now that are all of which more transmissible than the goddamn common cold. The writing is on the wall. It is going to become endemic. Let's just end this authoritarian nonsense already. Oh, and also, by the way, speaking as myself, as someone who has friends and family that live across Europe, Canada, and Australia, and elsewhere in the world, what point is the US government going to be pressured by the citizens who are acting like a bunch of goddamn fucking lemmings right now to go back on this stupid behavior? I mean, here in the United States, you have people here in the United States, particularly in the blue areas of the states of Florida and Texas, people are still wearing masks, still socially distancing. They're calling out and attacking their own governor just for trying to go back on this stuff. Meanwhile, blue governors are being praised for implementing more restrictions by those same people. At what time are the people of the United States can act more like their neighbors to the north, act more like the people in Europe, who are either praising their governments for easing restrictions or protesting them for implementing restrictions? At what point are the American people going to be more like the people of the Netherlands, or the people of Belgium, or the people of Germany, or the people of France, or the people of the UK, Italy, Spain, all of those countries, or Australians, or New Zealand, or Japan, or anyone else in the world, or Latin America? What are they doing? They're protesting right now, because they know the virus is becoming endemic. Nothing can be done no matter what you do. All of this other shit is asinine hogwash. Having people stay at home, not interact with any human, having robots deliver groceries for us, replacing real fans in the stadium with virtual fans, masking up for the rest of time, and having people carry a piece of paper wherever they go, it's not going to stop this disease from existing. It is an endemic disease. It was declared so by organizations like the CDC and the WHO months ago. Most nations, most accredited scientists in medicine, mainline people, real PhD degree doctors. Keep in mind, I am not talking about like conspiracy nonsense type of thing. Actual mainline physicians. Yes, that includes Dr. Fauci himself. Most, if not all, mainline physicians around the world, most medical complex like the CDC, the WHO, all of those believe that COVID has a very strong, almost 100% chance to become endemic. And at some point, we have to learn to live with it. You can control the damage. The best way to do this is vaccinate people who are the most vulnerable, the plus 65, people with underlying conditions, people who are obese. I know there's an obesity epidemic. The United States, by the way, has the most obese people per capita. Surprisingly, our current administration has yet to address that. You could save a lot more lives just by doing that. It won't budge. What I would encourage people to do, and thankfully this is actually being confirmed and already planned out to be happening as early as this weekend, is the US should follow suit of what Canada is doing and start their own convoy. Just start a convoy of your own. And I'm not just talking for the people who are not vaccinated. Keep in mind, 90% of Canada's population is fully vaccinated, and that includes being boosted. The convoy is not against the vaccine itself. This is not an anti-vax thing. This is an anti-mandate thing. There's a difference between encouraging people and forcing people. Even people who are vaccinated are protesting the mandates. Parents and students should get in on a convoy too. Even kids who are already vaccinated are still being told to mask up at schools. People who are already vaccinated and boosted, that includes kids by the way, should get in on the convoy in accord. That happened in both Italy and Spain. Vaccinated people in Spain were in the streets burning their COVID passports. And in Italy, parents and kids were taking their masks off, putting them in a trash can and lighting it on fire because of the direction things are going in. Because, Italy has quite a more recent history of being under fascism, and the same can be said about Spain. I am so glad this was actually planned out. I'm so glad this is confirmed. Let's start our own convoy to protest against carrying a piece of paper wherever you go, wearing a piece of cloth wherever you go. This is just a message to say we need to go back to our normal lives. Mandates and restrictions are a bad idea. We can't live like this forever. Let's go back to a full normal business as usual. Or let's have a joint convoy. I mean, the United States and Canada share a border. Might as well do that once we start our own convoy. We should join in and make one that goes between DC and Ottawa. That would be fun. Two great nations uniting against fascism, or Faucism as it's being called. But we gotta start our own convoy first before we can unite with Canada's in Ottawa. People in the United States need to avoid what Canadians and Western Europeans have done and get decadent and ignore the issues. Seeing videos of kids getting arrested for not wearing a mask, seeing kids being in bubbles at school, being forced to carry a piece of paper wherever you go, all of this tyrannical, authoritarian nonsense has got to go. Mandates do not save anybody's life. Mandates and restrictions are not the end-all be-all of epidemiology. Implementing more lockdowns, more restrictions and mask mandates, and continuing social distancing is now pointless because the vaccines are already out. Many of you are already vaccinated. Many of you are probably already boosted. Many of those who are not vaccinated are still going to stand on principle and not be vaccinated. Many of those who are already vaccinated but not boosted are again still going to stand on principle and not take the booster. Forcing them is not going to work. Even Whoopi Goldberg agrees with that sentiment.
My problem comes when you tell me what I need to do with my doctor and my family. How dare you? How dare you?
I'm aware Miss Holocaust is not about race was referring to abortion in that argument, but it's the same situation. There is a little bit of a thing in the United States called freedom. If a person decides he wants to get the vaccine, that's his choice. If another person, on the other hand, decides he doesn't want to get the vaccine, that's also their choice. We encourage you to get vaccinated because it's effective, reduces your risk of infection, but you don't ultimately have to and shouldn't be forced to do so. And at the same time, people shouldn't be forced not to do so. The same people who advocate for abortion are a bit hypocritical on this. The pro-choice folk claim that everybody has the right to choose whatever the fuck they want with their own bodies. Hashtag my body, my choice. Want to kill a poor innocent human life in your womb? Go right fucking ahead. Yet those same exact people want to force people to get something that some people don't want to get for their own reasons and carry a piece of paper wherever they go to prove otherwise. Nobody should be criticizing what they believe. This is what the left does all the time. There are people that choose to follow the science. I'm one of them, and they want to get the vaccine because it reduces their risk of serious infection. You know, there are a lot of people are in the demographics, they're over 65, or they have an underlying condition. They should get the vaccine. The vaccine reduces the risks of death of people who are within the over 65 and underlying condition demographic. And if you're a young and healthy individual, we should still recommend you getting the vaccine. But ultimately, at the end of your day, it is your decision. You don't have to get it if you don't want to. Because There are people who choose not to get the vaccine for their own personal reasons, and they should not be ridiculed for their own choice whatsoever. Most countries encouraged, educated, and recommended their population to be vaccinated, and they have the highest vaccination rates. A good example of this, the Nordic countries don't have and never had a single mandate or passport system put in place. Highest vaccinated countries in the world. Most of them are the Nordic countries. Denmark is the #1 vaccinated country in the world, if I remember correctly. I don't know if they're like #1 percentage-wise, but they're definitely on like the top 5 or top 10. They don't have any mandates put in place. They never did. Even when the pandemic first started, no crazy death surge happened there. No carrying a piece of paper wherever you go, and no mandatory masking in business. Sweden's the same thing. They also had a high vaccination percentage. Norway and Finland are in there too. Have any of those countries implemented a passport or mandate or lockdown or any restrictions? No. But they're still amongst the highest when it comes to their population being vaccinated. Are there any surges or problems? No, they're doing just fine. Even before the vaccine, Sweden never had any restrictions. There was never any crazy surge. They weren't having any problems. They were doing just fine. They just educated the population. Wash your hands. Stay at home if you have symptoms. Socially distance if applicable. Wear a mask and get vaccinated if you're high risk. And we're not putting any mandates or restrictions in place. That's all what Sweden did. And that's what Norway and Denmark are currently doing right now. Those enlightened Vikings must know how to get their shit together, apparently. So yeah, kids getting arrested for not wearing a mask. Kids are getting arrested in public for not carrying a piece of paper and not wearing a mask at the same time. Kids are being threatened with suspensions. People are being charged with felony just for not carrying a piece of paper with them. This is getting out of hand. This is not supposed to happen. Nobody should be arrested for not wearing a mask. Nobody should be arrested for not carrying a piece of paper for wherever they go. Nobody should be arrested for making new friends and not socially distancing themselves. And nobody should be arrested for disobeying a lockdown put in place. People have already had enough with COVID mandates. Let's see what happens once that US convoy is finally up and ready. Time to say no to mandates and yes to free will and civilization. But anyway, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button down below. And if you're new around here, be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the little notification bell. Be sure to follow me on all my social medias. Links are in the description below. And most importantly, there's also links in the descriptions to several other sites that I use besides YouTube: BitChute, Rumble, Storyfire, and Odyssey. Some topics will be exclusive on those sites for obvious reasons. I don't need to explain. We already know what big tech loves to do. But you're not getting all of the content of this year on YouTube only. A lot of the topics that I'm going to be talking about are going to be exclusive on the sites linked below: BitChute, Rumble, Storyfire, Odyssey, the usual 4, or usual 3 because I can't upload on Storyfire. But all the alt tech sites or new tech sites are linked in the description below. Be sure to check them out. There will be exclusive content there that you don't see on YouTube. So be sure to check them out and follow me there. But again, as always, like, subscribe, ring notifications, and until then, take care, talk soon, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.